All right. With that, I have 9. So I'd like to honor everybody's time and get started. And Heidi, my teammate, is with me today to help with the waiting room. So she'll let folks in as they join us. So as usual, thank you for joining me for the YIC webinar. This one is session 19. This morning, we will have a quick mindfulness moment, and I'll introduce the presenters. And then Jessica will share some family engagement strategies with us. And Kamille and Charity will talk to us about the 21st century CCLC grant and after school programs. So I tied all the words. I tied the mindfulness in today to the presentation on family engagement because I thought that was just such a nice little partnership there, reminding everybody that you can do this not only individually, but as a family. I do it with my surly teenagers, so I promise it's something that if you implement early in life, there are ways that you can integrate it in, and sometimes they don't even notice it. Like one of the examples here on the screen for practicing a single task moment is the rose and thorn. So for that, basically, you're just asking them what one success was and one frustration was for each day. And you don't have to even ask it as plainly as that. You can just have it as part of a conversation, but still keep you and your family focused on the one task, which is that conversation about how their day went and their processing. I really liked the idea about scheduling time for family meditation. I thought what a great way would be to start every day sitting together and having a few quiet moments, or even at the end of every night, getting together and having a few quiet moments before everybody heads out to their bedroom to call it a night. So those were some of the examples I found. I also saw many examples for family game nights, and I thought that could be mindful or that could be rowdy, but still some family fun, hopefully. I know at my house that I have 3 very competitive boys in my life, and so game nights at my house are very rowdy, but always very fun. So that was another suggestion that I had found while Googling around for family mindfulness activities. All right, let's get our presenters introduced. So Jessica Kallin works at the State Board of Education, and she is a family and community engagement specialist. Prior to this role, she'd been working for the agency for 3 years, doing outreach within districts and schools for the chief privacy officer, and she spent 6 years working within the refugee resettlement and migration services, advocating for equity for youth and education. She currently is a doctoral student studying organizational change and leadership, and she holds a master's degree in community leadership, and has been a fantastic addition to the agency. So I'm excited to hear from Jessica this morning. We will also be hearing from Kamille. Kamille has worked for the agency, has worked with youth ages 3 to 18 in many different capacities, including the parents and teacher programs. Head Start Salt Lake Community Action Program, gosh, that's a mouthful, and the University of Utah Neighborhood Partners Heartland Center for Youth Development Programs. Currently, she works as an educational specialist with the Utah State Board of Education, where she oversees the Title VI-B 21st Century Community Learning Grant. All these mouthfuls this morning. Anyway, it supports after school and summer programs, and I helped probably 2 years ago with the grant reading, and it's amazing what our schools and districts are out there doing with their after school programs. So I'm excited to hear more. With Kamille, Charity will be presenting. Charity Williams has worked for the Provo City School District for 22 years. 20 of those years, she's held various positions in the after school program. Currently, she is the grant project director for the district. A few of her roles have been as a mentor for the after school program throughout the state, running a program as a state youth at a state youth detention center, and talking with groups of middle school children in Washington, D.C. about educational experiences. In her spare time, she loves to spend time with her family, friends, travel, and be with her sweet dog, Marley. Thank you for taking time this morning to present for us. I will turn over the time to Miss Jessica.
Great, thank you so much. And Amanda, can I get a thumbs up that you can see my screen? Perfect. So my name is Jessica Kallin, and I'm the new Family and Community Engagement Specialist at the Utah State Board of Education. I just started in this position in October. And I also did want to add, before I came to USBE and I was working in refugee resettlement, I did create and oversee a youth mentor program for our refugee kiddos at the agency. So mentoring is so important. And I'm so grateful to be here to talk about family engagement and mentoring today. So just a quick overview of what we'll be talking about. Just what is family engagement, why it matters, strategies for engagement, and then I will provide additional resources if you'd like to look at
Jessica,
some toolkits. Yes.
One moment. Amanda, we're still seeing your screen. So the Excel screen, so there we go.
Oh, thank you. So sorry about that, folks.
No worries.
Thank you, Travis. Thanks, Amanda. Great. Well, here's my contact. It'll also be at the end. So again, just talking about what family engagement is, why it matters, strategies, and then I'll provide additional resources. So I want to do a quick activity, and I'll have you maybe just put some ideas in the chat so we can look at those. But everyone in this room is part of a group that specializes in engagement. So I want you to think back to a time when you were young or a young student and take a second to jot down your answer to this. So what was the most important thing that your family did to support your educational success? And maybe it wasn't a parent, maybe it was a neighbor or a close relative or a particular teacher. But I just want to take a moment and see what you can share with us. Thank you, Kyle. And he put in the family having a voice in decisions for their child. The big one. Well, this one's great. Attended my extracurricular activities and supported me in all school activities. Praise for effort and achievement. My parents ignoring my nonsense and following the recommendations of teachers. Stressing the importance of school, support with homework, more praise for effort. That's great. Thank you, everyone. So, as it turns out, there is a wealth of research, I'm sure everyone knows, that parent engagement is so important, and not just parent engagement, but family engagement to support the child's success. I see the school being the heart of the community. It's great. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I did want to include the definition for family engagement that we have been using. This comes out of the state of Connecticut. So family engagement is a full, equal, and equitable partnership among families, educators, and community partners to promote children's learning and development from birth through college and career. So this is the state of Connecticut. Judy is the Family and Community Engagement Director there. And so this is the definition that's been adopted for our state as well. So why does this matter? Families are assets and partners. Families and communities help youth learn traditions about their culture. This could be meals or holidays, activities. They also learn emotional openness, how to solve problems, discussing difficult topics, and more. So families are assets in children engaging and developing. Research also shows a lot of impact of family engagement. So students achieve more regardless of socioeconomic status. when parents are engaged or families are engaged, they also have higher graduation rates and college or post-secondary enrollment, higher test scores and grades. They also have better self-esteem and are more self-disciplined. And family participation in education is twice as predictive of student academic success as socioeconomic status. Students will have fewer behavioral problems. It also plays a role in prevention of alcohol use, antisocial behavior, and more. So family engagement does matter. It is one of bigger predictors for student success. So what are potential barriers? Feeling like an outsider. So if you don't feel like you fit in or belong at a school, that can be a big challenge. There are also language and cultural barriers. A lot of people in Utah who have been resettled as well don't have written language that they speak. So that's also something that is what we see in our community, or are pre-literate. And so not only if things are translated, they're unable to read that. And so really having access to oral translation is important for those communities as well. Families might feel uncomfortable or embarrassed asking for help. If something may seem normal or common to other parents as they're speaking of it, it might feel uncomfortable to ask for help or for clarification. I'm sure that we've all been in a situation where you're a little uncomfortable asking for clarification because it seems like everyone else knows what's going on. And so that can also be a barrier. Transportation is a huge barrier to engagement with schools. Not only transportation, but also childcare, and then also timing. So some parents are working multiple jobs or have outside of the 9-to-5 schedule. And so it can be difficult to accommodate all of that and get to the school when there's a lot on their plate outside of school hours. So the parents might also, or families might also feel uncomfortable that they can't provide assistance that mentors provide. And it might also be a barrier if other siblings or youth are feeling left out, and that needs to be attended to. So what can you do to address these and make families feel engaged? Mentors should partner with families and learn from each other. We know that all families possess strengths, and so we want to focus on that asset. We want to focus on the asset and the strengths of our families and build on that. And so engaging families with cultural sensitivity is also extremely important. Positive and honest communication is also crucial. So parents should be informed of academic progress and also successes. I think often we hear from families that they say, no news is good news. If I don't hear anything from the school, I'm assuming that things are great. Because they often don't hear unless it is, something that needs attending to. So keeping them informed of successes as well is something that is a really good practice. Communicate the value of implementing a plan. So if there is something that needs to be addressed, how do you create steps or create action items to keep them engaged in school and learning? And then affirm parents' contributions to children's success. So when something is working or they are paying attention and a student may say something or you take note, give them praise for that. That's really important. Two-way communication is another way to engage families. So setting up a system for when and how to communicate with parents. This could be a schedule. You could have something agreed upon where you meet or have a phone call or something. That way they know what's appropriate to reach out as a mentor or family on both sides. It's also important to understand parent and school perspectives. So I think that mentors are uniquely positioned between the two to be able to translate student need between them. And also, do families have ideas for addressing school concerns? So creating opportunities for that dialogue and saying, what do you think after sharing? This is diving a little bit more into that progress and learning, but be realistic about the actual level of performance. It's important to share where a student is, be optimistic about what is possible. So for example, there's a little script in here. Your student is on track to receive 2 Ds and a C. D's mean it's barely passing, and learning the course content may not help with future plans. So their performance can improve if we helped. What do you think might be the best strategy? And then that can create the dialogue. And then something like I was thinking we could discuss encouraging completing homework and starting to set academic goals. So being on the same page is very important, and then also setting that plan for student success. Another thing that's really important is ensuring that parents have information that they may need. So not all families will understand school policies and practices. We know that certain practices might vary from school to school or district to district. So making sure that they understand what the expectations and the rules are for the school, and encouraging them to ask questions if they don't know or they need clarification. It's also important to seek access to resources for parents. So if they need clarification, connecting them to someone who would be able to provide that could be a great step. And then highlighting the importance of in and out of school learning time. So it's important to be engaged in school when the students are there, but also have the space and the time to engage in that at home. And then providing ideas for home support for learning for parents for which to choose. So again, with the information, there are ways that they could show that they're engaging in their students' education and success in that way. So they could post a child's work on the fridge or put it up around the house. They could ask what they want to be when they grow up, college and career goals after high school, asking students to share in their learning and help with that progress. And then continuing to tell them how important school and learning is to them as a family member as well. Referencing goals set during parent-teacher conferences or with mentors is also crucial. And then celebrating successes when they meet and exceed expectations. So we understand developing trust takes time. It's not immediate, and it does, continue and grow as you work with families and students. So follow through on requests to build their confidence in you as that relationship as well as a mentor. We also know that challenging assumptions will help with family engagement. So oftentimes we operate out of a deficit mindset. So thinking what is missing or what might be needed. So when we operate with asset-based beliefs about families, we're more likely to build successful academic partnerships. So when we operate out of that deficit mindset, we're more likely to limit communication and information sharing and their ability to fully engage. So I did include this. This will also be at the end, and I have hyperlinked these in the PDF that I believe Amanda will share afterwards. Yes, I'm seeing nods. But the Flamboyant Foundation has really great resources to reflect and challenge beliefs about families. So there's an activity that I've provided there if that's something that would be beneficial to anyone. So I did also include some conversation ideas. So when you are connecting with families or trying to engage, especially in a digital world where a lot of these are virtual, this can be a really good outline of how to begin conversations. How are you? Is this an okay time to talk? Create an outline. So explain the purpose of the call, but then also give an opportunity for them to provide what they would like to discuss. Reflection is also a part of this. So asking them, with an emoji or a scale, how it's going currently. This can be a nice little icebreaker without having to fully explain. And then also validating their efforts. So what do they need to help support learning at home? Another section is sharing. I think that it's great when you get input not only on what they need, but how they think their child is doing. So giving them that opportunity to reflect on what's being done at home, but also how they're perceiving their student is performing at school. And then again, highlighting the successes. So be honest, but be optimistic. discuss the goal and give an opportunity for families to provide input in that goal and that planning. So is there anything that might get in the way of your student completing the goal that's being set? And then you can problem solve around potential barriers. At the end of calls, it's always great to talk about next steps. So it's not just ending with that plan or that goal or discussion, but say, what's next? How would we like to proceed? Are there check-ins that we would like to set? And then follow through on those to create that kind of environment of trust. And I did include some resources. This went by really quickly, but I did want to give an opportunity just to chat and let you unmute and ask questions. But here are some resources that should be helpful. Family engagement for all languages and cultures, a family engagement toolkit, engaging families in out of school time programs, family engagement as a strategy for strengthening mentor relationships, and engaging parents and caregivers as partners in mentoring programs. So these will all be available in the slide at the end. And thank you. I do want to see if anyone wants to unmute and ask questions, maybe share a success or a challenge, and we can kind of connect and collaborate on those together.
And I was multitasking. The other thing I would encourage folks to unmute is if you have some successes or other ideas you can share with the group too. I always love to try and learn from each other. So, and I'm messaging our other presenters, so we've got plenty of time here.
Kallin,
Oh,
go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to share a success. I think it's I'm hoping it's going to be a success. I had a student who just it looked, when I checked his attendance, like he was skipping the whole center of the school day. And I finally decided I better contact the parent because this just seemed to be a pattern. And when I contacted him, he says, could you call me? I emailed him first. And when I called him, he says, you're spot on with this kid. He had already suspected that the student was cutting XLT and then lunch and then the class that was right after. So the whole center of the day, he wasn't even there. So lucky for me, this parent was happy that somebody had finally said, this is happening and what can we do? And so he told the young man, he says, I give you a car so that you can get to school. And apparently you're abusing that. The only way you're going to keep your car is if you start attending. So the last time I went, he finally showed up and I was able to call him in. And I said, so how's your attendance? Smile. And he says, well, he told me that if I don't show up, I don't get half my car. And I said, good for him. We're going to do whatever it takes to help you be successful. And if that car is keeping you from being successful, that's what we're going to do. And he smiled. That was a fun thing. He smiled and I sent back to class. So I feel that was successful. We'll see if it makes a difference.
I would agree that was a success, Annie. Okay, I think Travis and maybe one other comment.
I just wanted to say thanks. I'm gonna have to hop off here for a second, but it would be also helpful to know, Kallin, what are some of the other pieces of your role currently and how it's playing out in the educational space?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So my role is to go in and provide support and assistance for our districts and schools that could increase or would like to increase their parent engagement. So whether that's providing a menu of resources or programs available, or providing some funding for them to do training. And a big project that we were focusing on is home visits. So that will be coming up in the next little bit. We just got approved federal funding to use for that. And so we will be encouraging more home visits from teachers to parents and providing more compensation for them to do so. So, yes.
That's fascinating. So yeah, we definitely kind of offer our interest as a district, Provo City School District. We have a student and family advocate team. So they've already been in the habit of doing home visit work for quite some time. And so, yeah, as you get rolling, we'd love to get into the details on that because it's something that we've kicked around from a YIC standpoint as well, as mentors have these conversations, kind of the liabilities of just showing up on someone's porch and how to stay safe and how to manage kind of all of that. And so if that's work that is being directed formally now, we would be very interested.
Great. Yes, please shoot me an email and we can connect on that and get that set up.
We all want our positive movie moment, you know what I mean, of the school personnel going to the home and having an epiphany and then changing the life of the child and the direction. And so, yeah, please reach out.
Thank you, Travis. Jessica, I noticed a few things in the chat as well. Let's see.
Perfect. Let me pull this up.
I was going to say, and it keeps jumping. Let's see. If you've got access, I'll let you read it. Then I don't have to stumble through it.
So many of our students are in facility homes. What suggestions do you have to engage the business folk that are responsible for these students? It seems that they're all business and not family parental figures. Interesting. So I'm guessing, and please correct me if I'm off, but this is the facility employees where the student is. And so that can often be really difficult because they are doing their day-to-day job at the facility. And so I can provide a resource and a toolkit for those types of engagements and those types of partnerships. I'll send that to Amanda to include if that's helpful. And also, please feel free to shoot me an email. Let me go to this slide. This is my email address. So I am happy to find any evidence-based resource and toolkit for you because there is so much out there, and I am a part of national collaborative groups that share resources. So if there's something unique that you just say, I can't find anything on it, please reach out to me. I will utilize our networks on this topic and find something for you. Great. And then I'm just going down through the chat really quickly. I had a success with the family. At first, they called me the white lady. I continued to work with the family and be kind and provide resources for them. And now they call me by my name. Congratulations. That's consistency, and that trusting relationship is very important. I find success in being consistent and present with my students. I have families who are counting on a financial contribution from their kiddo. So the student ends up leaving school for work. Any thoughts on helping families support school? That's a really great question. And I would often see that when I was working in refugee resettlement and migration services, because assistance didn't cover, a family of 10 kids living in an apartment complex. And so it's very, very common that students will leave and go to work. There are certain programs that are out there that will be school release for work. And so they can get credit to do that. So that might be a conversation with the school counselor and with the family. There are also internship type positions that are outside of school hours that provide that support for families in need as well. So I know that this isn't direct, but please send me an email and I will get those resources out to you. And we'd love a home visit protocol. Great. We actually do have a training on that. We have a partnership with an organization as well, and I can share that. I did include the website on our state page. So there is a little bit of information about the home visit project there. But again, just reach out to me and I'm happy to connect with any resources or any opportunities outside of school as well.
I think you made everybody's day today, Jessica. This comes up in training almost every time. Everybody's always looking for magic recipes, better ways to interact with folks and do it safely and purposefully. So that will be fantastic to share out some of those resources. I'm excited too. So, all right. Did we have any other questions or anybody that wanted to unmute and share? Let's see. Oh, I just saw the chat. The adult education in Tooele uses work credit and they can show their pay stubs. Nice. Oh, the things we learn. Oh, thank you, Jessica. Jessica put her email in the chat for us. Everybody's welcome to reach out anytime they need some help. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I really appreciate your time this morning and enjoyed your presentation. It's something that I always love hearing more about. You know, it's reassuring to remember educators are concerned about not only the whole child, but their family as well. So thank you. And I see Kamille has joined us. Kamille, did you want to share from your screen or would you like me to do your PowerPoint?
I'm good to share from my screen.
Fantastic.
Awesome. I'll get that set up.
Okay. And while she's doing that, everybody's welcome to take just a 30-second stretch break if you need it.
Hey, Amanda, should I just share my screen? I don't see an option to share my, like a window or a program.
I wonder if it's because I had it on this other setting. If you want to close the share menu and try again.
Okay.
I just fixed mine. It's funny how when you change one thing, it changes so much more. But it might ask you to share the screen. Oh, I could do this too. Where are you, Kamille? Let me. There you are. Let's see the right one here. Co-host. Okay, that should actually give you some more privileges too.
It's only giving my screen right now. Would you mind sharing my PowerPoint, Amanda? Sorry.
No problem. I would be happy to.
Thank you.
Pop that open. I was telling Jessica as we logged on, my computer decided to reboot about 15 minutes before the webinar today. I was like, oh, sure. All the
I know. All those updates happen at the most inconvenient time when you need to submit something and you just want it to work.
Yep, exactly. All right. So
Thank you, Amanda.
Everybody's seeing it. All right, I'll be here. Just holler if you need something.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. So happy to be here with all of you. I'm Kamille. I'm with the Utah State Board of Education, and I oversee the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant. That is a mouthful, so we're going to break down exactly what that is, because that's too much. We love acronyms in education, but really this grant is intended to support after school and summer programs, and it can be with school districts, charter schools, community-based organizations. We see a lot of partnerships between our community-based organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs and then a school. So that's the most common configuration we have, but really the program is about supporting students. And so a lot of the students that you might work with, whether they are in the YIC program or perhaps they're at risk, after school can be a very strong protective factor. And that's always what we want to amp up. What resources can we get? Can we get them into an after school program to connect with some trusted, caring, consistent adults after their time in the YIC program? So that's what we're going to go over today. We'll go over just some basics of the grant, and then hopefully my colleague Charity from Provo School District, she is their after school director. She's going to share her experience as a practitioner about connecting students who might have certain risk factors, might have be currently in the YIC program or participated in the past. How can we connect them to these after school services? How can we engage their families? So that is what we will be talking about today. Next slide, please. Awesome. So this is my contact information. This is going to be information that you might need to digest. So definitely take your time, go over the information, and then reach out to me. I'm happy to meet virtually or in person. Charity, we can also make some connections there. She's great to work with, to talk about. If you're like, I don't know, I just want to do after school, maybe you have some of the CARES relief funding you have access to. So definitely let's connect after this, but digest it. Always happy to set up a program visit, whatever you need. We're all about after school programs, building quality after school programs. And I really think it takes a community-based approach, because what works in Price, Utah might not work in, Brigham City. So definitely take a community-based approach with all of our after school grant projects. So here's my contact information. Next slide. All right, so our time together, we did introductions. Charity hopefully will join me in a bit so she can talk about some of the strategies she's utilized in her work. We're going to go over what exactly is this acronym-laden 21st century grant, and then talk about how you as YIC mentors, maybe you're the director for the program or a specialist in your district or charter school, how you could connect with some after school programs. Then we'll go over what was been working in Provo and have some time for any questions or answers, whatever you need. So just if everyone could tell me their familiarity with after school or summer programs by like a thumbs up, or like that you've heard of the program. If you don't mind using some of your Zoom tools to do that, just so I can get a sense of if you've ever heard of how much detail I need to go into. Okay, some people, I'm going to put my thumbs up too, because I am very familiar with the program. Okay, so some people. All right, so Jessie is saying they're really helpful to the students to participate in after school. Awesome. And she loves after school programs. Great. Thanks everyone who was able to put their thumb up or type in the chat. That gives me a good direction to go. So if we can get the next slide, please. Absolutely, Jessie. Great connection to the school day. So the 21st Century Grant it's part of the title funding. So if you're familiar with Title I, that's more the most common one that comes to mind, but really it's targeted funding. So this is supplemental funding. It's a competitive process that is for schools or communities that have poverty rates of 40% or higher. So that's what we would call the absolute priority. So if you're, and I think, looking at your free and reduced price lunch rates, examining those to see if this is applicable, but even if perhaps it's not this grant, you definitely could connect with your local after school programs. Andrea just put in the chat, keeping kids safe, because we have that huge gap between 3 and 5:36, where a lot of families are still working, maybe they have different kinds of schedules. So definitely our after school programs can be a protective factor. Maybe if we have students who have certain risk factors, coming to after school can prevent them from maybe going down, maybe entering a YIC program or other things. So definitely a great protective factor. But this is just a code, so you have it. But the focus areas are all about academic enrichment, family engagement, and providing those additional support services based on whatever the communities are. What are those needs? Prevention, character education, things like that, things that are engaging. Because I know from my experience, I would not want to do, if I'm going to school and then I have another 2 hours of just like, oh, well, you have to do this for school, 2 hours of tutoring or homework. That's not fun for anyone. So we really want to make the programs engaging, aligned with the school day, bring in that element of family engagement. Jessica's great about making those connections with families, whatever works. Home visit we've had some programs experiment with home visits as part of their 21st Century Grant. So that's a focus of the grant. And the next slide, please. So how are we providing those opportunities for connection, to not only connect with the students, but connecting with their families as well, and family engagement, taking it beyond just, well, can you come to this showcase for students quarterly or whatever, but what is it taking it beyond that to create intentional family engagement, connecting with Jessica from our office, but really maybe not all families will need home visits, may not need as many of the resources, but really working within your school, your overall community to determine what are the best needs for the academic programming, the kind of social, emotional pieces, as well as the family engagement. And another area that we went into, and I think this was discussed right before I presented, was how can we connect, especially our high school students, with more opportunities for internships, work-based learning. And that's something we're exploring in the 21st Century program with our high school programs. How do we make that work? How do we, because high school can be a harder sell to some students. Sometimes they, have cars, they can drive, they have to work, as someone mentioned, they have to work to help support their family. So could we use after school as a base with our high school programs to really connect them with these opportunities, resume building, interviewing skills, but so then maybe they don't come as consistently to their high school after school program, but they know if they ever need anything, the staff there can help them, can, be a reference for them, whatever they need. So next slide, please. And thanks for all the comments. I love the comments. So these are our goals and indicators for the program, really looking to shift that needle in all of the schools, the community centers that we're in, but not working separate from the school day. It's really important after school programs are connected with the school day. I'll share some resources. We have a school day alignment rubric that's really helpful. I think even in your work, as you work with the YIC program, is, going through the rubric and seeing, are there any other connections I can make? Eventually the students will leave the YIC program. So how can you work to set them up for these additional supplemental resources when they leave the program, and, connect them, make those connections. Next slide, please. So this is a competitive grant. So I know some of the coronavirus relief funds, those have been based on, different things, and it's just funding directly to schools, but this is a competitive grant. And so we anticipate a release in spring of 2022. I can't believe we're in 2022, but we do anticipate a release coming up. We do have typically between $1 million and $1.4 million. This is all based on census poverty data. So similar to the title programs like Title I, that's what determines how much each state gets. And this is a 5-year grant cycle, because we recognize with after school projects that it's not just we do it for a year and then we don't have those services anymore. So this is just some information about the competition. I definitely can add anyone who's interested to my email list to know when the competition happens. I'm going to be doing some resource sessions with any interested applicants, because I think my advice whenever you're getting ready to apply for any grant is to start early, understand the grant, what data is needed, how does this connect to existing projects in your school, other program connections. So definitely starting early. We'll talk more about how you can connect with current after school programs in your community if you don't have the funding right now, or how you could approach maybe someone in your district or charter school to say, hey, how can we get our students who are participating in the YIC program, how can we get them support to participate in some after school programs in the district, charter school, or the surrounding community. So next slide, please. And then I'll take some, we have some questions here. Yeah, in terms of the home visits, I think it just varies based on the approach. We've had some really positive families have enjoyed them, but I definitely think it's around the approach. using more evidence-based strategies when you're doing home visits. I know I worked with the Heartland Youth Center back in the day, and we did some home visits, and it was kind of, you know, it depended, but they were generally positive. I think it can be intimidating to have someone to come into your home, but I think if you're clear with your intentions and you know that you're there to support, of course, we're never there to judge. I think they can be really positive. So just working with, yeah, definitely connect those students with the after school. Thank you, LaRue. Yeah, and we definitely have a variety of school-based after school programs as well as community-based. Okay, so some Zoom connections for family engagement. Yeah, I think Zoom, you know, it's always on the spectrum. Too much Zoom, you get Zoom fatigue, but yeah, Zooms, that's a great resource that now more people have access to. So thank you, Andrea. Awesome questions. So this is just what the grant cycle looks like. We do have a reduction in years 4 and 5, but maintaining the same level of service. And that's where the community partnerships come in. That's where I've seen the most success is working with your community partners to, maybe it's for staff, maybe you work with your local Boys and Girls Club or YMCA to help with staff, but really getting high quality trained staff to engage with the youth who might have different risk factors, who might struggle connecting. Maybe they're having a hard time connecting with staff during the school day, but if you're at a school site, how can you make them feel more comfortable and just so they feel supported, and that consistency that was talked about in the beginning. Next slide, please. So this is the timeline, as I said, coming out in 2022. I have an email list that you can sign up for. There's a link in the PowerPoint and I can share that as well. But we're typically, I encourage programs to start January. If you're really interested, happy to meet with you, happy to connect you with other programs who are part of this. We do things in Utah Grants, that's our system. And then everyone is notified right before that July 4th holiday with the expectation that programs will start sometime in August or September for new grantees. So that's a timeline. Next slide, please. And then all of the applications go through a competitive review process. And through this review process, we do provide all applicants, because unfortunately, we don't have unlimited funding. So we have some applicants who are not funded, but we always provide reviewers' comments back to you, because that is how we grow, right? It's that continuous improvement cycle. So we always provide the review comments back. I've had a lot of applicants who often they don't get funded a few times, but they take those review comments and they're able to adjust their application. They're able to get funded. And the biggest thing I have seen is the needs assessment, I would say, is understanding what are the needs of the students you are focusing on in the program. What other programs do you want to work with? Like maybe it's for students who are in YIC. So really understanding those needs and narrowing it down to, if you are going to do an after school program, maybe in a specific YIC center, there might be some restrictions there in terms of the activities, the community partners who could get in. So really focus in on those needs and the data and what does that tell you to design your program. That intentional programming is so important with across the board for all of any kind of youth development programming. Next slide, please. Awesome, just great comments around home visits. I also found them really helpful in my work. It helps to build the relationship, make students, their family members feel comfortable with you. So yes, home visits are awesome. So these are just some of the responsibilities. really want to create these intentional quality programs. And we partner with Utah After School Network. They're a great resource if you're interested in anything after school, want more resources, and I can show you the website in a bit, but they're awesome to help you go through. They have lots of tools and resources. I know some of you might be more frontline staff, so perhaps you're directly working with students. They have great ideas for planning, for implementation. It's tricky to come up, invent more things, try to engage with youth as their interests change, but they have great resources. So we'll go over their website. Next slide, please. So just, quality is really important to these after school programs. All of our funded programs, we want them to be part of that continuous improvement cycle. We actually have Utah State Code and board rule around that, just so we're always being intentional with our programming. Sorry, that was my alarm to join the meeting. But so just some information around the background. We're really strong in our after school efforts in Utah. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm just going to take a question before we go over this. So what about parents that use the after school programs to be an extended babysitter and dinner provided? How do we get them to engage in the program? I think that's always a struggle. We definitely don't want our communities, our families, our schools to see these as babysitters. We want them to see that these are aligned supplemental programs that are not just there to, safety is very important, but we're really there to engage with the student, to support them. And so I think that partnership between the school and the after school program is really critical for building that essentially credibility. And then to let the parents know, like, the school and the after school program talk. And, we just have to keep trying. Sometimes some parents are dealing with a lot. They're not as engaged, but I think just being there, being consistent and building your credibility with the school, with your community partners, that these are strong quality programs that are aligned, that it's not just babysitting. So great question. This is our logic model, and it's very an after school that we use in Utah. And you can see it's very focused around being a protective factor, increasing those protective factors, being aligned with the school day. I think that is critical, but that doesn't happen overnight. Even if you're perhaps a school program, it can take time to, and we're in different times now, going through the coronavirus pandemic. We have a lot of teachers, other education staff, many of you who might just be burned out, but how do we create those partnerships that maybe we have a teacher consulting, maybe they don't work exclusively in the after school program, but maybe they consult with you, maybe they help you refer students. Maybe there's some teachers you've worked with in the through the YIC program. So maybe you can work with them to connect your students with the after school program. All right, awesome questions. Yeah, so this model is based on kind of a very large peer review of, what are the components of quality programs in Utah? So that's where this comes from. And so then having our programs take this, adapt it to the unique needs of their community. Because we're all going to do academic enrichment a little bit different in each of our schools and each of our after school programs. So we're going to create those relationships. We're going to build family engagement. It will be a little bit different, but these are the common outcomes we're all working towards. And then each school or after school program will have their own unique goals and outcomes. Next slide, please. So just if you are interested in applying, I always like to share what we can do with these particular funds in after school versus what you can't do. So the biggest expense is staff. So getting high quality trained staff, which I know has been an it's been an issue over the past year of recruiting, retaining staff, but staff, you can pay staff to work in the after school program. We often have teachers who consult in the after school program. So that's definitely allowable. Any kind of training, professional development. We talked about evaluation costs are always allowable. Providing our students with snack, dinner, that's allowable. And then we can't, since these are federal funds, we can't focus on things like entertainment, gift cards, incentives, toys. That's where we have to draw the line in the sand with that. But just a snapshot if you're interested in applying of what the grant is about, because really it's about building these programs, staffing the programs, getting evidence-based curriculum, but we can't go too far into entertainment. So next slide, please. All right, so just going over needs assessment, and I think this is applicable to anything when you're designing a program, trying to implement something. What are your available resources? Who can you connect with? What kind of community partners can you bring in? Are there any, could you work with the adult education program to, that family engagement piece, maybe off, connecting, letting them know that there's classes for families and parents through adult education. If you're working with a lot of multilingual students, can you connect with someone who is doing those services in your district, charter school, or your school? So what does that look like? So what are your available resources? It's always good to do a summary of those just to have better serve your students, even if you're not applying for a grant. Like Jessica mentioned in her presentation, could you connect with your local Department of Workforce Services, the employment centers they have resume building. There's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, the WIOA program. Do some of your students who maybe who are currently in YIC, or if they're transitioning out of YIC, could you connect them with the WIOA program that could give them some services around, getting an internship, getting a paid job, things like that. So what are those available resources to support our students, support our families? Could you connect your families with some of those services? Maybe they don't know, maybe there's other things, maybe they've had bad experiences, but if you as a person, that consistent person there, could you help connect them with that? So just always good to do a summary of resources. Next slide, please. And then focusing on, how your program is organized, who are you going to get to staff your program? What is the academic component going to look like? Again, we don't want to just do 2 more hours of we're going to do worksheets, or we're going to do tutoring, or whatever it looks like, but how can we make it engaging and have a balance of both academic and enrichment programming? Can we do more project-based learning, that maybe those things that can't be done during the day, to get students to come back, to want to come to after school more consistently, where we see stronger outcomes? How can you build those relationships? I think this is so true. Our students, after school is optional, but I don't think they necessarily connect with the program. It's the people in the program. It's the people who are there every day. They remember their name. They ask them how was your school day? They ask them about something they mentioned, last week. How did this go? How did that test go? So our students connect with the people. So it's important that we have the right people in the programs. We have them well-trained, well-supported, aligned with the school day, and focused on achieving our outcomes. Next slide, please. And I see that Charity has joined us. That's awesome, Charity. I'm just wrapping up. So glad that you're here. So how can you, as connected with the YIC program in whatever capacity, if you're working as a mentor, or you're working more closely with, maybe you're at the district or the school level, but definitely check out the 21st Century grant list to see if perhaps there's some after school programs in your community, in your school district or charter school. Could you reach out to them? Could you refer students there? Could you develop a partnership there? So definitely check out that list for existing programs. And then you can also there's on the Utah After School Network, they have a page where you can find a program. So perhaps it's not it's an existing after school program, but we don't fund it with this particular grant, but you could still connect with an after school program there to say, hey, if you know you have students who are leaving the YIC program, working with their families, their guardian, whoever it is, like, I really think they should participate in after school. So having those resources available for as they're leaving the after school program, reaching out, and then, you know, just finding ways with your current resources, current capacity, how you could build those partnerships with those different after school programs. Or on the other side of things, if you're really interested in applying for your own grant, you know, through as the YIC program, we've had grants like that in the past. Perhaps that's what you want. You just want to have your own program. That's definitely a possibility. So let's reach out to me now so we can talk through that. That's my next thing, engaging with I'm the education specialist over that. So let's, if that's something you want to have your own grant for your YIC program within your school or your district or your charter, let's talk about it now. So those are some strategies. Awesome. Next slide, please. And then if you are interested in applying, definitely join the listserv to be part of, we have a variety of after school programming grants. I'm over this particular federal funding, but we have some state after school grants too. So I can send, you know, when we announce those grants, we try to get everyone, but it's very tricky. So we can send you the information, add you to that list. Again, connect with programs in your area. You know, consider data needed if you do want to apply for the grant. What would that connection piece there? How will you support students as they are in YIC? And then what is maybe a plan after they leave the YIC program? What gaps are you going to fill? That needs assessment. And then how can you bring in community partners to support? I don't know what that looks like in the YIC program. I'm not as familiar, but maybe after they leave the YIC program, what that looks like. Assembling a team. I'm going to have office hours starting in January for any kind of support or questions around 21st Century Grant. And then we'll have what we call the bidders meeting. It sounds a lot more exciting than it is, but the bidders meeting is an information session on the grant and gives any interested applicant the opportunity to ask questions as part of that meeting. So that is what, if you're interested in applying for your own grant. Next slide, please. And then this is our web page. So you have it, and I can share that link when Charity is chatting. So next slide, please. All right, yay, we are to Charity. So thank you, Charity, so much for joining us. Charity's from Provo. She is always my go-to. She knows after school. She's been in the field over 20 years. So she's a great resource, and she's all about supporting students wherever they are. So Charity, do you want to talk? This is her contact information, but do you want to talk about what's been working well in Provo School District, connecting with YIC students or students who, you know, are at risk? So yeah.
Absolutely. And I missed your presentation because I wasn't planning to be here until 10. So if I go into repetitive mode, just cut me off or give me the sign, okay, Kamille. So again, I worked in Provo School District. We've had after school programs at elementary schools, middle schools. Our middle school is I'm trying to get to where I can see you guys, so I don't feel like I'm looking at myself. Anyway, we've had them at middle schools. We've had them at high schools. We've had one at the Slate Canyon Detention Center. And we've had our programs at our alternative high school. As you can imagine, you know, YIC covers students that are in foster care all the way up to students in state's custody at the detention center. So what it looks like at our elementary schools is they're just like any other student. They're there. They're invited to be part of our programs, whether they might be in a behavior situation or just needing an outlet after school, they can participate. The only things that would prevent that are sometimes our students are enrolled in other therapies that take place after school, or different classes that they go to that aren't part of our after school programs. In one case in elementary, I've told this story many times, we had a student in the class and he kept beating out a rhythm on his desk. It was driving the teacher crazy. And no matter what we did, we couldn't channel that. And so finally we created an African drumming class after school and invited this student to attend and arranged it with the foster parents. And he started to participate in that program, and it connected for him. He was able to stop the drumming in class, and he had a motivation to do well in school. And that's just one little success story. Other than that, at our alternative high school, Independence High School, we've invited these schools. We've created a sports program there, even though it's not part of the Utah High School Athletics. I can't remember the acronym, so I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the students there, to participate in the sports, they have to have good grade and great attendance. And so they will come and sign up for soccer or volleyball. And we notice great progress for those students while they're enrolled in the sport of their choice. Now, sometimes when the season ends, they backslide a little, but we try to get them involved in something else. We've even helped these students. We have an element of our program there that helps these students get employed, whether it's through the WIOA program, helping them write resumes. We even will act as an in-between. We've reached out to several employers in the area, anywhere from Taco Bell to other youth mentoring programs, to help these students connect with an employer. And then we will act as a kind of a go-between. If the manager at Taco Bell is having problems with one of our students, not being timely or whatnot, we'll kind of help intervene and see what we can do to help them out. In addition to that, we try to help our students through that. This isn't necessarily through 21st Century, because 21st Century doesn't cover them when they go to the freshman year of college, but those first generation freshmen, we try to continue some contact with those students. When we had the program at Slate Canyon, it wasn't without its challenges. When the facility had some security concerns, programming would halt. And we'd have to change things up there and adjust on the fly. But for the most part, we were able to bring in people to, again, be motivators for the students to have great behavior during the day. I will be honest, it was used oftentimes as if you're great during the day, you get to do this after school. But I will say this, our after school programs are not detention. They are not, we have a tutoring session where students go to voluntarily, but it's not that you're required to stay after school. With CCLC, it can't be punitive in nature. The schools still have those elements. That's just not part of our after school program. So we hope to encourage the students before they join. I'm trying to think. I wanted to just kind of open it up to you guys for questions, like how would this work? And I wanted to let you guys know that if you want to make this work, like Kamille said, you can reach out to me as well, and I'll help you figure that out the best I can. So does anybody have any questions? No? Kamille?
I had a question. We talked a lot about home visits, and I know some programs are, and Annie has a question.
Okay.
Do you guys do home visits in Provo in connection to the after school program or maybe some school days? And what are some good models or strategies you guys have implemented with those?
Okay, so yes, we do home visits. Primarily the home visits. Okay, so our Independence program, we specifically, Independence High School is our alternative school. We specifically, it costs a bunch of money out of a grant, hired a social worker to be the site coordinator of that program. So they are actually the second social worker on site at that school. And they help primarily with our after school kids. They help connect them to the work. They will make the home visits. They're the person that they're there all day. If a student doesn't show up to school and calls in sick, they will go with a second person to the student's home, take them chicken noodle soup if they need to, just make that connection. If they're late to school and they say they can't have a ride, we have a van, they take somebody there and they go pick them up from school. All of our schools have a social worker, and this is not necessarily part of CCLC. CCLC helps it in some situations, but we also have family liaisons or family advocates, and they will go in pairs to the family's homes to make the home visits. I'm sure you guys have lots of models around that too. During the pandemic, there were a lot of porch visits. We did a lot more home visits during that time because there were students we just couldn't find, whether it was for the day school or for the after school, they kind of just disappeared on us. And so we would make those home visits to go check on those students. During the pandemic, our after school programs went online, but we had for students who got lost during the day, special help sessions after school. I'll be honest, there are some students at the end of the day, they don't want to be in school anymore. They want to go home. So after school is not going to win them over in any way, shape, or form. But we have had a lot of success in creating the motivation and creating the relationships. And oftentimes that is with our day school teachers, and they have a way to connect with those students where they're teaching a STEM or a robotics class, not just the math class. And so students develop a new relationship. Did I answer the question? I know I rattled. Did I answer the question about home visits? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Who had the question?
Oh, it was just my question, Charity. But we did have a question from Annie about how to engage kiddos in programming, asking for their suggestions. What are some things you guys do?
Okay, yeah, that varies. From sometimes we'll start with just a little basic survey to kids, what they want to participate in, to when we're working with the high school students and even the middle school students before we submit our grants, we'll call them in and we'll bring, like, I have an ice cream party in the cafeteria after school, and we get the big poster papers out and have them go write their ideas or show their design for how they would design a program. And they, just the normal things we do in meetings that I call them the PSYOP strategies for engaging students. I know that's an ELL thing, but we'll bring them in and have them help to say what they're interested in. And we've had a lot of success with that, and some of the things have fallen flat. You might have students that year when you're writing the grant and they're all interested in doing X, Y, or Z. One of the big things was geocaching at the time. So we decided to have a geocaching club, and when we got the next round of funding, we implemented this geocaching club. Well, either those students had moved or moved on, and nobody was interested in geocaching, but we reached out to the students that were there, and we were able to switch it up into something different to meet their needs. With after school, you have to be willing to kind of go with the flow and tuck and roll time at times, and just be quick on your feet. Other times there are classes that are going to be a winner. For some reason at our alternative high school and at our middle school, the most popular things to do there are the cooking classes. They love them. Do they love foods classes during the day? Not necessarily, but they come for the after school thing. One of the components, especially at the high school, is we have a food pantry there. So we use items from the food pantry for the cooking class, and then we can send these recipes and stuff home so they can make it for their families. So it's a little bit like needing a crystal ball and just stumbling upon the good things. But get them involved, because you'll learn something one way or another. Could go well, it could not. Don't be too harsh on yourself and get too defeated though. So yeah, you just keep rolling with it. Any other questions? Chancey, I see that you're on. Are you still in Canyons and working with after school programs, or? Maybe she's not there. The Canyons was doing some great things at one point with the YIC kids, and especially the kids from the homeless shelter. So I wanted to give her an opportunity to speak if she wanted to.
So I am here.
Okay.
So I actually don't work with the after school kids, because by the time they do that, I'm done with my hours. But I do refer a lot of students to go. And it has been amazing, because with our after school program, they focus on homework for like the first bit. And all my students who go really get that help. And I've seen their grades just improve so much. And it's been really wonderful to see that. And so I try to get all of my students to go. If the school has it, then I try to make sure that they go. And I make sure to tell everyone on their team about it so that everyone's involved and they can encourage the kids to go too.
The homework portion is always huge. Parents and students love that. They get to come and get side-by-side help or group help with their homework. That's usually always an element in our program as well. And it makes a big difference. We do try to support what they're learning during the school day. It wouldn't be for our summer program, for example. We used a lot of the 95% group strategies and interventions. And then afterwards, we had drawing graphic novels classes. So we do try to support what they're doing in the day with the small group interventions or the one-to-one interventions, not just more seat time and more class time, but always pairing that with some element that they are excited about. And quite honestly, for summer school, the kids, they would do the academics all day. They love and thrive on being 1 in 5 or 1 in 8. And they just love that attention that they can get when they're in the small group. They'd even sit and do their regular math class in a group of 1 to 8, just because it's the small group. Any other questions? Kamille, is there anything else you wanted me to talk about?
No, I think that was excellent. I appreciate you sharing all your wisdom. You've built such strong programs. And like you said, it's not just about, the academic piece. We have to make it engaging. And what it comes down to is relationships. So thank you so much.
Amanda, I saw Amanda's comment. And at our middle school, she just talked about her son. They have a D&D club. At our middle school, one of our most successful clubs is role-playing games. And I have to be honest, I grew up in the time when like D&D was like the scary kids in their basement thing. And so when I heard we were doing that, then they wanted to do that, I'm like, you what? And I just went with it. I'm like, okay. And the most amazing thing, okay, so I showed up there one day and I'm just checking this out to see what's really going on here. And there are kids in there. He was a 8th grader and he had his Pikachu hoodie on. And all these kids were just, okay, they might have been labeled the oddballs. They found their place, you guys. They found their group of people. And these kids that didn't do anything in English, several of them, they could write these scripts for their games that like rocked it. And so I had to talk to some of them at one point, and I'm like, turn in this script as your assignment. You've done everything here. You just wrote it for a game. So when you write, you know, sometimes the teachers make them write about specific things, but show the teacher that you can write. And the teacher had no idea. And so that teacher during the day started incorporating, allowing them to use their scripts for their games and stuff to kind of grade or what's the word, evaluate their writing skills. So, but these kids, they found their place, and there were a whole bunch of them, and they all gathered together. We even had the kids that after they went to the high school for a while, they would come back and still want to play and mentor the younger kids. So it worked out on every level. It's one of the things that keeps that program just great. If we could have it every day, if we could get the teacher who does it to do it on a daily basis, we would do it. But part of it, I have to say, is him. And the most interesting thing is he's actually known as one of the tougher science teachers in the school, but he comes out and he creates these relationships for these kids. And D&D is not a science class, but he sees results in his science class because of the relationship he's built with them. So, and I don't know what Chisenbach is, Annie. I'm sorry. Could you enlighten me?
I haven't heard of that one either. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either. That's a new one, and I have teenagers, so I was hopeful, but
yeah. I'm gonna have to look into it now. So
Yeah.
let's see.
math calculate. Okay. Oh, that's cool.
Oh, neat.
We'll have to look into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Don't be afraid. That's the biggest thing. Go out on a limb.
I think that's been the thing I've learned, both with the conversation today and parenting, is the shocking thing that they want to do that actually gets them engaged. But what I love is seeing like things come full circle in my lifetime, because like Charity said, D&D used to be, oh, scary kids, you know, and so it's so nice to see that even though it's like it's not the mainstream topic, it's still the way to engage them in the school and make that a more comfortable thing that then other kids can talk about. And, you know, maybe then it's no longer a sticking point. It's something that they can learn about. So I really love that.
Like Mr. Potato Head, you know, in the Toy Story movie where she says, I pack my angry eyes, pack away your judgment as to what you think about what they're saying, and just kind of let them go with it. Be there to weigh it out and supervise it. But the kids, we had one group of kids that created their own program. They came in and they started doing their own thing. They said, can we have a space for this? Yes. And next we provided a supervisor for it. They did their thing and it was all within reason. So
that's fantastic.
Especially with teens. Elementary, you judge, you know, you walk with them a little bit more, but teens kind of give them some rope, because they're gonna anchor to it and climb to higher heights, not hang themselves with it. I promise. Yeah.
You said you've got to be willing to take that risk and you know, grow with them. I like that.
Thank you.
About the Chisenbach class for just a second, really fast.
Yes.
I work with little kids and they're having a hard time doing their math. And I was trying to teach him how to do this thing with your fingers to do the nines. And he says, no, only dumb kids and babies use their fingers. I said, no, there's actually a whole program. And I think it's Korean, and it's called Chisenbop. And each finger has a different value. Like this is a 5, and these fingers are 1s, and then 10s on this other hand. And you can actually calculate quicker than somebody can do it on a calculator. And some of these kids in these schools are doing it so fast that it's kind of fun to see that they can beat the rest of the class. And this one little kid, he's so terrified of making a mistake. His class walked past while we were working on his math, and he just crumbled. And he said, I don't want them to see me. I don't want them to see me. And I said, what if I could help this kid be successful to the point where he could say, I can beat you in math, and just sit there and go with his fingers and calculate. So I thought, well, what if we could do that as a class? If a bunch of kids learn how to do this, and you go, oh, those kids are fast. Look what they can do. They can calculate. So I don't know. Like you say, you have to try things and see what flies.
I love that. I'm gonna look into that. So thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you, Annie.
You can do Chisenbop or cup stacking. That's their other favorite thing to have with. So thank you all. I appreciate you listening, and I hope I helped. And please reach out. I'm happy to help you make it work. I can't write your grants for you, but I can help you put together a program if you're interested. So
thank you, Charity.
Awesome. So definitely reach out, because she will come visit with you and get you on the right track.
Awesome. Well, if anybody has any other questions, now is the moment, or I will let us end early, which I doubt anybody will be sad to have some time back in their day. I know we're all busy this time of year trying to wrap up everything so that we can enjoy the holidays with our families and time off. I'm not seeing anything but thank yous in the chat. So I think we can go ahead and end. I appreciate you guys so much. I do think this answered some questions. I know we had some directors and newer folks to our arena online. So I think that's fantastic. And it was lovely to hear that a lot of our mentors know about the programs, but I was excited for the links you shared with the lists, because the next time a mentor calls, I'll be like, I have a list. So thank you so much. All right, everybody, have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll follow up with an email that has the post-training survey link. Thank you.